Hi.
All right. Hey, how are you?
Okay, this is my first Instagram live.
Oh, I always have to like adjust the camera because it's
I know, I'm like, okay, how do I look?
I love your
Um,
background. It's very cute
Thanks. This
office
is
space.
my new little office. It's actually my roommate's like ensuite of her bedroom.
Oh, well, it's super cute.
Yes. Yes. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm down here in South Florida. Been quarantined down here since the beginning, and there's definitely worse places to be. Although we've had a lot of thunderstorms this week, I'm really glad that right now it's sunny, and so there's nice light in here.
Yeah, I was like, okay, which because my light is really good here, but then you see my reflection in my glasses, so.
The struggle
Um,
of the glasses
Yes. Yeah,
reflection.
we had a wedding in Florida a couple weekends ago, maybe last weekend. It all blends together. And they had like torrential downpour, and we typically don't like to do a rain date because it makes it so hard to like find a date that works, but they were definitely needing that.
Yeah, it's been crazy down here. I don't know if any of you guys watching right now are in Florida or just familiar with Florida in general, but it's like hurricane season is like getting ready to start here, I guess, from what I understand. But we had a tornado warning 2 nights ago.
Oh my
Tornado warning.
gosh.
I was
Well, in
like, what is
Texas,
happening?
one of the gals that works with us, in Texas, they had like a really bad tornado at her lake house, and her parents were there, and like she had no clue because their service went out and everything. And
Oh,
luckily
wow.
their house was fine, but I guess like there was 7 feet of water that rose from the lake.
Oh my goodness. There's some
Yeah.
extreme weather happening. 2020 like needs to go
Yeah.
home. Like it's
I think
just
it's maybe the apocalypse is hitting.
right. It's like, what else can happen, truly?
Yes.
Anyway, on that note, we're going to talk about some stuff that's going to help couples kind of navigate circumstances that we're all in by taking their in-person weddings that they had originally planned into a more like virtual setting with
Yeah.
your company. So why don't you kick us off and just tell us a little bit about Wedfuly and how it all got started?
Absolutely, yes. So Wedfuly, right now is offering virtual weddings. When Wedfuly first started, and I started it in 2017, it was just virtual wedding planning. So not the whole thing online. Obviously, back then, virtual weddings weren't a thing yet. But yeah, so it started out as just a site where you could go and work with a wedding planner for a lot more reasonable price. And that would be, I mean, quote unquote, as close so you could get as full service via online as possible. And then I guess, and now we're 2.5 years in, and in March, when things started shutting down, a lot of our clients and couples obviously started having to postpone and cancel their wedding. And I think at the time, if we can all remember what feels like forever ago, I think we all thought it was going to be a lot shorter. And I think, it was the immediate April, maybe May couples were looking at postponing. And so I just was like, well, let's offer some virtual stuff to our current clientele and just get through this weird period. And then next thing we know, stay-at-home order is extended. People are still wanting to get married for very obvious reasons. Postponing to the fall wasn't looking like the best idea anymore. And so we really full on pivoted to offer virtual weddings as our thing for the foreseeable future. And for those of you that are kind of like virtual wedding, obviously most of you who are on here hopefully have heard of it, or are hope that none of you have had to deal with crazy, crazy stuff through all of this. But I'm sure for those of you that have, you've heard of virtual weddings. There's a lot of different variations of them. Obviously, the base understanding of it is you prop up a computer and you live stream your ceremony. But what we strive for and what we've really, really worked on is evening the playing field for virtual guests and in-person guests. Just because they can't make it to the wedding does not mean they are B-list guests, does not mean they didn't want to be there. There are things that are out of everyone's control right now. And so virtual weddings are no longer just setting up your computer and watching the ceremony. We are doing everything from processionals with virtual aisles and flower children and ring bearers and all kinds of things, all the way through to cake cutting and group dances and dance parties. And toasts, which are so heartfelt given everything. So we've really taken the full wedding experience and tried to bring it online and make it feel as authentic as if you were in person. And we do that through a variety of ways that we can really dive into the details during this and kind of walk through the different angles and how to really make it feel for those virtual guests that they aren't second tier. That's not what we want. We want that hospitality for the virtual guests to be just as amazing as those on-site guests.
Yeah, it seems like you guys are really focused on taking the in-person experience and replicating that online and giving people ways to interact. And it's not just like they're sitting at home watching all the action. No. They're getting to take part in it, which I think is really cool. Because I think there is kind of like this misconception that, a virtual wedding is just a live stream and you just watch and you're just a spectator.
And I think that's what it's like so hard, right? This is a whole new medium. This is a whole new world we're living in. And to try and understand what that looks like. And I would encourage everyone to go watch the videos on our site of we've like put together all these different highlights from different weddings, and everyone that watches it cries.
I got goosebumps. I watched it this morning.
It is. And I'm like in it, and I did the script and I wrote it all and I know what's coming. And I still, every single time at the very end, I still like tear up because it's just, I mean, also given, like I said, given the world we're in right now, I think things become a lot more emotional. And I really have like a fun thing I want to dig into and really go into about virtual weddings. But, we won't dive into the details yet. We'll just keep with the bigger, broad view first. But
no, I love it. I love it. I love that you guys really like pivoted to suit and serve couples who are going through these situations right now and helping them navigate it and providing like a real solution that gives them more of that realistic experience. And I guess it's just like they always say, like necessity breeds invention. Is that the right phrase? But
yes. I think everyone's always been talking about that. Like it's always the like total huge earth-shattering change that creates these new things. And I think another topic I'd love to get into later is what weddings look like post-pandemic.
Or even how long you might foresee this being kind of the norm, and
that's obviously hard because I don't have a crystal ball and I don't know what's going to happen, so it's hard to like talk about that, but
I know. I feel the same way.
You my opinion.
I feel the same way. Like, just like you said, nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody knows how long this is going to last or how long this all might go on for. But, I think, like you were saying before, back when all this kind of first kicked off, we were like, oh, maybe just like the April and May weddings will be affected. And as time has gone on, we've seen the effects of this are going to be much more far reaching, but it's still a lot of uncertainty, I think, hanging over couples' heads. So,
and I think that's where, we say to every couple, like, this is emotional. This is hard. Like, you need to take time to like process, because it is completely different than anyone would have. I mean, who would have thought even in January, if you had said, like this is going to be what you're living through and this is what you're going to be dealing with your wedding, I don't think anyone would have even thought that would sound like sci-fi. So I always encourage people, like, take the time to fully process what's going on before jumping into any decisions, because we don't want you to like feel upset about the decisions that are being made while you're making them. Like, I think like there is like a weird, mourning time. Like, you need to like really let it sink in and get through that and then start to make decisions. And I think then the mindset can become a lot more positive and things can start to feel more exciting. Whereas if you're in that phase still, I do think like it's hard. It's going to be hard regardless. But if you haven't given yourself that time to like cry it out and think, like, totally get the emotions out, the negative ones, and then start to look at like what you're going to do, it can be hard to reach this point.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I do think that, everybody who's going through these things, like, it's completely normal and like valid to feel whatever it is you're feeling, whether it's disappointment or devastation or sadness or In some cases, I think people might even be feeling relieved that maybe their plans are changing for whatever reason. Whether it's,
Yeah.
you know, they had their plans had
I
gotten out
know.
of control and now they're being forced to downsize and they're
And
feeling
they're
a
like,
little bit relieved about it.
we have so many people like that. And we have also people who come to us and they're like, honestly, we didn't have a wedding planned. We weren't going to plan it because we were having a really hard time figuring out what we wanted to do. And they were like, this is a really great option for us.
Right. Yeah. No, I love
Yeah.
it. And no matter what your situation might be, like if you want to take things kind of virtual and go online, like maybe, you know, the services that you guys offer can help couples who are watching now. So why don't you share a little bit about like what it is that you guys do, what makes it more special, and the different ways that they can work with you.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing I want to touch on is like, this isn't just propping up a laptop or, you know, your friend holding a phone and following you around. Like this is as full production as you can get for a virtual wedding. And that's our goal. This can't feel, like I said, going back to that, like we want to level the playing field for all guests. We want everyone to feel like they're included, whether they're in person or not. And so we always start with tech support. Tech support for us is really important. I always say, like, we hear a lot of the times that the most important people that are attending the wedding are these people who might be on the older side and have a little bit of issues and struggle with technology. You know, they've watched the couple from diapers to saying I do, and those are the people that really want to be there. And so for us, we offer additional tech support if needed, these one-on-one meetings where we get them all set up. Otherwise, we do just offer 45 minutes of kind of prelude tech support. This is time where people are gathering. They're kind of being like, oh my gosh, look, it's like Aunt Betsy just joined or something. And during that time, we're checking in with everyone and kind of saying, hey, how's it going? So-and-so, your audio is not enabled or your video is not working, making sure that they feel 100% comfortable and set up and ready to go. We hear over and over, like, my parents are really nervous. Like, my parents are really nervous. They're scared they're going to miss the wedding. And it's like, we want to do everything in our power that we will. Technology is technology. Wi-Fi might go out. We can't control that stuff. But everything that we can control, we want to make sure we're addressing with those people. During that prelude time, people are catching up. We're playing music. And then we'll obviously launch straight into the processional. The processional is one of my favorite parts. And you'll hear me say, like, my favorite part throughout because there's just a lot of cool parts. But I like to, like, make sure
I
we
have lots
sprinkle
of
in.
favorite parts of weddings too, so I get it.
Yeah, and I want to make sure we sprinkle in, like, virtual involvement throughout to make people feel like they're fully involved in the day. So one of those pieces where we can sprinkle in the virtual crowd and virtual involvement is the processional. Especially we hear a lot, like, flower children and ring bearers wanted, you know, I mean, when I was little, I was a flower girl and I wore my dress around for 2 weeks straight. So you have those kids who are so excited to be a part of it, and then they can't travel, or, you know, they can't make it on site, or they're, you know, whatever it is. So we encourage them to still walk down their aisle at home.
That's so cute.
A lot of,
I love that.
yeah,
They get to have
cute.
their
And
moment.
they still have their moment. Some people pre-record it so that if they are being, you know, having a tantrum or something, there's no issues.
It happens. It happens.
Yes, we did have that. We did have one flower girl put all of her petals out during the warm-up. So by the time we came to her live, she was actually picking petals
Picking
up
them back
instead
up.
of, yep. Same with ring bearers. I mean, it's so cute. And we get really creative. Like, they'll hand it up to the camera and then, like, you could grab it and then you have your ring.
Oh, it's like those viral TikTok videos.
Yeah.
Where they're doing the pass.
I know, we
thing.
pulled a lot of stuff from TikTok, so can't take credit for all of that. But, and then there's stuff where, you know, bridal parties or full wedding parties will wave at the camera and we'll introduce them, or they'll walk down an aisle at their house. We just want to make sure anyone who is going to be in the processional can still be included. And then obviously for the on-site, what's super important to us is making sure you have all those devices set up so that when you're processing in, we're catching that. Like, we have one camera angle on you processing in, and then another on the second part of the processional, and then another on the actual ceremony. So people are actually, like, watching you process in and move from place to place. It's not like all of a sudden, oh, here you are on the screen and we're starting. There's a build up to it, and there's time for the crowd to get situated and, like, have that anticipation that you have at the real wedding where, like, you're getting so excited for whoever is walking down the aisle to make it down the aisle. We still want that emotion to be there. And so we do that through those different angles. And then also
it's like a very
through,
professional production, but you
oh,
kind of guide them on how to set all of this up. And
yes.
do you usually, like, just to ask, are you using like multiple phones, or how do you kind of pull this off?
Yeah, and I'm literally looking for my phone and I'm using it to do this. I'll use my so this is like a phone that we rent out. And essentially we have
so do you do packages where you'll send them
yes.
extra cameras? Oh, cool.
Yeah, so because you might not want to use your own phone because you might want it, for whatever, we'll rent out these packages with phones and tripods and speakers and hotspots if they're doing it outside. And essentially we'll have them set it on the tripod like this. We always want it this
landscape, right?
Thank you. Yeah, not this way because it cuts off. It has black bars on the side on the zoom. So you want it this way. We have a full hour-long AV call with our couples where we're solely they're out at the site wherever they are, moving it around and marking. We'll have people duct tape places where it is, masking tape, and say tripod 1. It does take a lot of prep, but I mean not nearly as much prep as you would need for an in-person wedding.
Well, so and the payoff is so worth it, I think.
Oh,
when
yeah.
You see, if you guys haven't been on their website, go watch the video because it's so great and you can really get a feel for kind of what they're able to help you guys execute and achieve with this.
Yeah,
so,
it is really cool. And I think the more angles you have, the more emotions there are because then they can fully see everything happen and they feel like they're on site. But yeah, processional, we want to make sure we capture that full thing. We typically launch straight into ceremony. Ceremony, I always say, that's probably the easiest thing to picture because your guests are just sitting there and watching anyways.
Right.
So then, obviously, they can just sit and watch on a computer or phone. But we still want to include any virtual readers or, anyone who's going to be in the wedding. We have a lot of people that get married and are merging families. And so their kids will be on the different screens and they'll do an address with their kids and we'll pop to each of the kids and their families and there's a lot of fun ways to include people in the ceremony. And then I always tell people this is not where it ends because I think what we've seen a lot online is that people think it ends there. The computer shut down, you're good, you go. But no. We do a quick intermission and then we go straight into what we call the virtual reception. So this is everything from first dance, group dance, any special dances you want to do, father-daughter, mother-son. Some people are doing a choreographed dance. One person's doing a TikTok, straight into cake cutting. And then two of my favorite pieces in that, and this is where you can kind of sprinkle in the virtual aspect throughout. So obviously you start with the prelude, which we're talking to them, we're including them. Then ceremony, processional, you want to sprinkle them in. Ceremony, with the reception, how you can sprinkle in that involvement is obviously first dance, you don't sprinkle them in. That's your moment. But then group dance is hilarious. So we do Jumbotron spotlighting of people while they're dancing. So whenever we'll go to the gallery view, which these are all Zoom terms and I can explain them more in depth, but gallery view is all the little screens. And we'll go in and we'll spotlight different people on the big screen who are dancing.
They get their moment to show off their moves.
Yep. And at first they're always why is it on me? And then they'll dance it out. Which
the
is
awkward
really
person who doesn't want to go in the middle of the dance circle, but you force them to anyway.
We literally force them.
Recreate that virtually.
Exactly, by spotlighting them. And then cake cutting is super fun. Not everyone does that, just like a regular wedding. And I always tell people this is your wedding. You don't have to do any of this, or you can do all of it and then some. And then after cake cutting are the toasts. And this is something that I really I love is toasts at a regular wedding sometimes feel they can go on a little long, because you're I want to eat my chicken parmesan or I want to eat my food that I've been waiting in line for. But I think what's beautiful about a virtual wedding is that you've really stripped down all the grandiose of a regular wedding. So you don't have food, you don't have drink, you're not worrying about your napkin fold, you're not worrying about what flowers are there. What truly shines through in a virtual wedding are the words and the relationships. And I think that's what the heart of a wedding is you're merging, two families, you're bringing people together. You really want them to know and hear their relationship with you and their past experience with you. And the toasts are a really great way to do that, because I always say choose wisely, but I mean, you want to choose wisely at a real wedding anyways, but it's just like they get really, really emotional. Like, people still cry at every single wedding.
Well, and I think like now more than ever too, like people are a little bit more emotional. There's so much happening in the world. Like,
yeah.
I would imagine that some of those speeches are just like really moving and meaningful, even more so than maybe they would be under normal circumstances.
Yeah, they are. That is 100% accurate. Like, I think they really hit home during this time. And I always say throw in more speeches than you would at a normal in-person wedding, because that's kind of the main event. You know, after the ceremony for the reception, that is kind of the main event. Everyone has a drink at home during that intermission. We encourage them to grab a drink. Some people are sending out like wedding boxes that have champagne in them. So they're getting really creative, and we've partnered with Box Fox, which is a really great company, and we're offering wedding in a box. So yeah, there are really, really great ways to make that really nice and heartfelt. And then I think the coolest part about a virtual wedding is the breakout, like, reception tables that we do. And so I always say this is exactly how you would feel about when you're at an in-person wedding and you have to walk around to every single table and say, hi, thank you so much for coming. It was so great to see you. And it's exhausting. You still get to do that virtually, and it's still going to be exhausting. And you just hop into each of these tinier video chats, and our team does all the heavy lifting, so those like technically challenged guests don't struggle with it. We just push everyone into these smaller rooms, and then the couple can just jump into each room and say hi and chit chat, and the night can kind of end and fade out with that socializing time. And I just think it makes it feel a lot more personable, and not that they're just watching a screen. They're there, and they're getting to chat with you, and they're getting to chat with other guests, because people put these groups, I mean, they break them into the groups strategically, right? So they'll do family friends and friends from high school and all of that stuff. And it's really nice to catch up with people you haven't seen in a while. And then also for the guests to be able to feel like they were seen and heard.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so true. Like, when you're on your wedding day and you are trying to say hello to everybody on your epically large guest list, it can be really tiring. And the Zoom fatigue, I think, is a real struggle. But it's also your wedding day, and you're running on adrenaline, I think. And just feeding off of those good vibes and all the love of all those people who showed up for you, whether you're in person or online on Zoom. So it's got to be a great feeling for those couples, no matter what it ends up looking like.
Yeah, and guests and couples, all of them come back after, and they're like, whoa, I just had no clue that it would be, we had one couple reach out to us, and they had spent 2 years planning their wedding.
Yeah.
And they did a virtual wedding instead, and it was beautiful, and it was, there were tons of tears and tons of laughter, and it was just amazing. And in the message, they were like, we can't picture it being any better than this. Like, they were like, this is 10 times better than we could have ever done. And that is a great segue into, like, they had to cut down their guest count. And then when it went virtually, they opened it back up, and everyone was there. And they got to see all these people that they wouldn't have been able to see. And also, like, who knows when they would have been able to talk to them next. Or, it's still the great way to, like, bring everyone you love into one place, even if that place is virtual. But I think the beauty of it is, like, you can have as many guests as you want. And if you can hit that 1,000
without affecting your budget.
Yeah, and if you can hit that 1,000 person mark, that Zoom maxes out at 1,000 devices, like, I will give you a gold star, because we haven't had anyone do that yet.
Surely a celebrity is going to make that happen at some point, right? Just let everybody tune into their wedding.
I'll take all requests for that. I would love to see that happen.
I love it. I definitely think that's a huge benefit to doing things this way, because you really aren't limited on how many people you can invite to participate and to take part in your celebration, which is always a big struggle for couples, I think, when it comes to sticking to a budget, is like, how do we incorporate and include all the people we would honestly love to have there without just bankrupting ourselves with expense. So
and I think it'll be interesting, like, as we kind of fade out of the minimum people amount minimum people allowed to gather. I think it'll be really interesting to see how those lists start to divide up and if people start to choose an elopement option with the virtual, or, there's still going to be the weird social struggle of like, where do I draw the line? So then
Right.
maybe you just like draw it really small and then everyone feels equal. I don't know. There's lots of interesting things that I'm really excited to see how they'll play out. But I think regardless, we won't see virtual weddings go away. We'll just have to work on more of like a hybrid. And we already are doing that. I mean, we have weddings booked all the way through December of this year. And a lot of them are just kind of saying, I want this for the people that don't feel comfortable traveling, because they
Exactly.
don't want to put people in that position of being like, you didn't come to my wedding in the middle of a pandemic, how dare you? Like, I think to give that option, you're meeting people halfway. And it comes back to the fact that, like, you are having a wedding obviously for you, but like, you wouldn't be inviting all these guests if you didn't also want to have it for them. So
Yeah, and if it
making
wasn't important for them to be there and experience it.
yeah, and they want to
Yeah,
be there, but like, there are bigger issues, you know immunocompromised people, and um you would hate for that to be the event that triggered things. So just
absolutely.
giving them, and that gets really dark, but giving them an option to attend virtually, I think a lot of people will appreciate that.
I totally agree. I totally agree. I think it's great what you guys are doing. I think it's such a helpful resource for couples who might be feeling a little overwhelmed with the logistics and like how to get it all set up. And the fact that you guys are there every step of the way to mute people and include people in when they are, able to talk and share, I think is just a nice like relief. I think I
Yes.
always advise couples like, obviously everyone has a budget that they're trying to stick to, but if it's within your budget to get professional help to execute, it's going to give you so
Right.
much more peace of mind. And so I think this is just another, example of that.
Yeah.
So.
And I think, like, on the topic of budget, like, talk about a great way to throw a wedding for a really low cost. I mean, think about it, like, you guys have no clue what the rest of my room looks like, but like, this little area looks really nice. So if you could spend, if you wanted, if it what was important to you was making it really really nice, and the decor was really important, and the look and the feel, and you wanted nice photos and you wanted nice video, then I think this is a great option, because you the money that would be spent on food and drink can then be repurposed for things that are important to you. But you don't lose out on that big guest count.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's such a good point. And then there's also the benefit of when you use Zoom, you can do the virtual background. So you can like
Yeah.
change what's going on behind you.
I know I don't usually recommend that because it can like swallow people, is what we say. But yeah, I mean, even
Yeah.
I
If you're
think
wearing
I
like a green
trust,
shirt, you might see like
yeah,
flowers on your clothes.
I trust people to be able to at least clean up one part of their house. But it is funny when we do our AV calls, they're like, okay, so sorry, we just like shoved everything out of view, but like, and it's like sparkly clean and nice in this little
Yeah.
frame. And then the rest of the house is like hectic because there's kids and work and life.
It's all you need. This is just a new world that we're living in. So
Yeah.
if all people are going to see is like this level of your house, then that's okay.
Yeah.
I was going to scroll through and see. I saw a couple questions roll through, so I wanted to just make sure that I got a chance to answer those or toss those your way to answer. Have you found that certain venues are better suited to a virtual wedding than others? That's a good question.
Um, Not really. I mean, like I said, I guess I always encourage people, like, if you can get like a price break on the venue if you're just doing the virtual part there, that's great. I think places indoors obviously a lot better because your Wi-Fi is going to be stronger. You're not going to have like cars driving, the noise outside can sometimes be an issue. We have like mics and stuff that we encourage people use to avoid that. And we have hotspots for people that are getting married where there's not great Wi-Fi. But obviously, like, if you're wanting like the most optimal virtual presence, I always recommend indoor. That being said, otherwise, I mean, it really depends on what your style is. I think I've encouraged people to keep their venue and maybe ask like to get some money off and just do like a small virtual part there, like doing the ceremony there. And then during the intermission, maybe you drive to your house and do a nice dinner there after, so you're not moving around after you've started drinking and doing toasts. But
yeah,
no, I mean,
definitely be in one place once you start the reception, guys. Let's be responsible.
But no, I always say, like, it doesn't matter where, we'll make it work. But obviously, strong Wi-Fi or data or low outside noise is nice.
Right. I would imagine that so far it's mostly been a lot of people doing things at home. Is that the case, or?
Yeah, we're starting now to see a lot of people whose venues are like, okay, you can come in with 10 people. But at that point, a lot of people are like, well, it's a 200-person venue, so we're kind of getting swallowed whole. So then they're just like,
empty space.
Yeah. So we are starting to see a lot more at venues, which is fun. And a lot of people are renting like really nice Airbnbs in place of their venue if they could get their money back. And then they have like a super, super cool house to do their wedding at. So
I love that. I'm a big fan of like the small, just like put it together Airbnb thing. Like, I just love that.
Agreed.
So that's cool. Let's see.
Yeah, I was scrolling through too.
Yeah. Someone had asked if you can shift between pre-recorded video and live video.
Yeah, absolutely. We do that all the time. The one thing we say is like, we haven't figured out a way to get rid of the controls yet. So if anyone has any advice on that, but essentially you will see like the play button being hit. We're working on that right now to get rid of it, but we have had a ton of people do a hodgepodge of like someone actually walking down an aisle with a video of someone walking down an aisle. And then we actually had a couple do the first dance, and it was a culture, I think it was Hungarian culture, that they create a pre-recorded video of them like singing the first dance song. And so we switched between the video of them singing and the people dancing, and the audio stayed the same. So we can absolutely switch around.
That's really cool. I love that. And I think that just adds more to like the ability to like personalize it to like whatever is important to like you and your partner. So
and the production level goes up then, because there's just like cool stuff going on that the guests are impressed by.
Yeah, totally. I had one other question that came in through the question box earlier today, and it was about doing a virtual bridal shower.
Ooh. Yeah, we are seeing a lot of those trickle in. It's funny, I'm like reading back the comments. Sorry, I get like very distracted. We have seen a lot of like requests for other parties and events trickle in, and I'm always like, more power to you, because you are putting in the thought and the effort to make it really good. We're doing a bunch of graduations as well, which is fun.
Wow, yeah.
So that's been really interesting. It's all in all like our goal. I always tell people, we're not like, you know, pro live streamers who are going to set up like high quality equipment on your site. Like, we're going to help you guys have the best virtual experience, meaning that the guests that are attending are going to feel like they're there. It doesn't mean that like the level quality of videos has to be like the highest quality ever, like Hollywood footage, but like as long as they're hearing and seeing you and really like feeling that, it's really nice. So yes, for those other events, because why not? I always say too, like a lot of them you can host yourself, and we can send you guys tips on them, so you don't have to spend the money to work with us for them. But we are doing, I think, a bridal shower in the near future. I have to ask my team.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a wedding has a lot more logistics involved. Obviously, if you're currently planning a wedding, you probably know this already, but you know, especially what you guys do with patching people in and changing camera angles and stuff like that, there's just a lot more logistics involved, and that's where a service like this really comes in handy for like a larger event.
Agreed. And also I think, but like some people do want to throw that for, you know, like a lot of people are really heartbroken that they can't do the bachelorette or can't do the bridal shower. And so I do think we've seen a lot of friends and family reach out and say, I want to make this as wonderful as possible for them, so that they don't feel slighted at all, or like this is a second thought. Like, we still want it to be amazing. And so that's when I am like, sure, do it. I mean, it can't feel too overproduced. Like,
no, I don't think so either. And I think also it's like, nobody wants to feel like they've been completely robbed of this experience of being engaged and having all these wonderful celebrations. Like, you all deserve to celebrate every single event that you were originally planning to. And so
Yeah.
finding whatever way you can to do that, I think, is amazing. So
Agreed.
yeah, I'm on board. Well, I guess we're kind of like running a little bit over time, but was there anything else you wanted to share? If anybody has any questions, you can pop them in the last minute question box. But yeah, anything you wanted to say before we wrap up?
I don't think so. I think my biggest thing is, like, you obviously don't have to work with us to have an amazing virtual wedding, but just find someone that can take that like burden off of you so that you can really just enjoy the wedding. But like, you don't want the virtual guests to not have a great experience. So definitely just assign someone to make sure it goes smoothly. Make sure they are very good at Zoom. There's lots of tips and tricks online. I mean, everyone's using Zoom right now, so that's great. And then my other recommendation is just don't be afraid to get creative. I think because it's a new medium, traditions and what is supposed to be is totally thrown out the window, and like, you can get creative. I think that's been my favorite thing, is working with these couples and seeing the creative wheels spin and see them be like, oh my God, well, what if we did a video here or a ring pass here, and we had, all the virtual guests involved. So we had one gal walk down the aisle with a cardboard cutout of her dad. So don't let it yeah, so cute. Don't let it just because it's virtual doesn't mean it has to be lame. Like, there's so many cool things you can do, especially with the content that's being created these days. There's a ton of, get on TikTok, for example. Like, that's a great sample.
I spend a little too much time just wasting on TikTok these days. I don't know about you.
I know, but it's a great way to see what people are doing and get ideas for what can be done in virtual world, and just make it as creative as possible and make it as buttoned up as possible, because those two things will really put you at ease at the end of the day. And there won't be any blips then, and you've already had enough blips with all of everything that's going on.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I super appreciate you being here and sharing all this information. I hope everybody goes and checks out Wedfuly. Check out that video. It gave me a little teary eye this morning when I watched it. And for the folks who were asking, yes, we republish this on Instagram TV and on YouTube. So you'll be able to catch it later if you missed the beginning. But anyway, yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And I hope that you invite me to a virtual wedding, because I still haven't gotten to go to one.
Okay, we'll figure that out. We'll find someone who's like, yes, of course, everyone's welcome. And then you can come see how cool it is. I think that's my favorite part, is all the guests after are like, whoa, that was cool.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thank you so much. It was good to see you again. And if anyone needs anything from Wedfuly, you can just go to wedfuly.com, WEDFULY.com. Our Instagram is on here, obviously, with a link to our website, and we're happy to answer any questions you have.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. And thank you, Caroline, for chatting with us.
See ya.
Bye.